back to another video on my channel. I'm thinking that today's video is going to be on the shorter side. I don't know why, that just tends to be how things are playing out lately, but anyways, today I've decided to talk about some urban legends, and the reason that I decided to talk about these is because Halloween is approaching, fall is approaching, spooky season is just about upon us, and that is my all-time favorite time of the year, so I'm getting really excited. And so I was thinking of trying to incorporate things in these videos on this channel that kind of link you back to almost like your childhood, but not so much that it's boring. And I definitely remember being in school and the teachers telling us urban legends around Halloween, so I thought that it would be kind of cool to maybe start talking about some urban legends here. Now, the urban legends that I'm going to be talking about today are all out of Alabama, and you might be wondering why I chose Alabama, and there isn't actually a reason as to why I chose that. The only reason that these are all based out of Alabama is because the first two urban legends that I came across that I did want to talk about ended up being from Alabama, and so I decided I was just going to go with it and pick them all from Alabama. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to stick to like state by state or province by province, but I definitely think that I'm going to be visiting urban legends more often on this channel, especially lately, if you guys like these videos. But anyways, with that all being said, let's get right into it. The urban legend that I'm going to be starting off with today is what is known as the Dead Children's Playground, and from that name you can already tell how creepy and eerie this is. But anyways, this urban legend, I guess, comes out of Huntsville, Alabama, and it is about a playground. Now, what makes this playground so creepy is that it is actually located within a cemetery. Not any cemetery, it is actually located in Maple Hills Cemetery, which is the largest cemetery in all of Alabama, and it is also the oldest cemetery in all of Alabama. And it has a playground within it. Now, I'm not really sure if this is the only cemetery in the world that does have a playground in it, but I do think that putting a playground in a cemetery does have some kind of very creepy, eerie feel to it. This playground was originally called Dorst Park, but the locals have since dubbed it the Dead Children's Playground. This cemetery was founded in 1822, again making this the oldest cemetery in Alabama. It is also over 100 acres wide, or I guess that's as much property which is within the cemetery, and that again makes it the largest cemetery in Alabama. The park itself is located kind of in the back corner of the cemetery, and it is covered completely by trees, and it's kind of enclosed by like these almost cliff type things. I'll put pictures of the park as well as the cemetery in this video like I always do, but I'm just trying to give you guys what exactly this park inside of a cemetery looks like. Now, because it is enclosed kind of by those walls, and because the trees are looming over top of the park, the sun never really hits the playground, and because of that, it gives the playground that much more of an eerie feel to it. Now, I do believe it's pretty obvious that putting a playground within a cemetery that decision wasn't made with any bad intent. I'm sure that they were putting this playground in the cemetery thinking that it was a good idea not to add a creep factor to the cemetery. I definitely think that a lot of kids do go to visit cemeteries with, you know, their parents, their grandparents, whoever, to see somebody in their family who passed away, and not all kids can properly comprehend death, especially at a very young age, and so they're easily distracted or they become bored. So I think that putting a playground in a cemetery, although creepy, does logically make a little bit of sense. However, closer to now, I'm not sure of the exact year, they started to kind of clean up this particular cemetery, and that is when they completely removed the park. Now, they thought that this was a great idea, but the locals in the area were quite angry about this because that park had been within the cemetery since 1822 when the cemetery was founded. So they were a little bit agitated that the city had removed the park. So they kind of protested and whatever, and they decided to put this park back in the cemetery. Now, they got all new equipment and whatnot, so it definitely is updated now. It isn't all the same play park stuff that was there in 1822. It is updated, but it is still within that area, and it is now deemed a protected area, and so Dorst Park still remains there today. Now we are going to get into the part about this park that is considered to be an urban legend. However, obviously, given the information that I'm about to share with you guys, there is a possibility that some of these facts could very well be true, but an urban legend is an urban legend because there is no proof to prove whether or not this actually happened. The exact year that all of this was said to have taken place is something that I couldn't find super concrete, because as I was going through articles about this urban legend, the date did change quite a bit from article to article. So all of this is said to have taken place sometime between the 1940s to the 1960s. It is said that during this time, there were either a bunch of killers or serial killer in the area who preyed on young children. It was said that this killer or killers would kill these children and then dump the bodies in the field that was located just beside Doris Park within that cemetery. It is also said that many of the bodies allegedly were found surrounding Doris Park, as well as across the kind of strip within the cemetery from the park. So it was basically just said that there were children's bodies found absolutely everywhere surrounding this little area within that cemetery. Now again, this is an urban legend, and so even though I was digging and digging, I couldn't find any records of any child killers being on the loose at that time in this specific area of Alabama. However, obviously there could be some truth to this. Maybe I'm just not searching the right thing. But regardless of whether or not this is true, a park within a cemetery is very unsettling. A cemetery is a very unsettling place regardless of anything, just because of all of the things that take place there. But putting a park within a cemetery, even though it was probably done with good intentions, does just add to the eerie feel of going to visit a cemetery, in my opinion. Regardless of that though, people claim that when they visit this park, they do have a lot of creepy and paranormal experiences. Now, not all of these paranormal experiences are with children, but if you do believe in ghosts, then that's not really all that surprising, considering that this place is located within the oldest cemetery in Alabama. So obviously, if you believe in ghosts, I feel like that would be kind of like a paranormal ghost hotspot. People who visit this area usually go there now looking for ghosts. It is a ghost hunter hotspot, as well as teens looking for a scare, and other people who are just hoping to experience something creepy. Many people who go there do say that while you're at the park, you can see phantom adults walking by as well as children. You can sometimes hear children laughing, or you can see the swing swinging. There's just overall a very eerie vibe at this park located within this cemetery, and there are a lot of ghost stories that come along with the dead children's playground. Incorporate here now some photos that I found online that people had taken in the late hours of the night while visiting Doris Park. And in this picture, you can see orbs floating around. People often claim to see orbs floating around the playground, but again, this playground is located in a cemetery, so if you take that fact and you do believe in ghosts, then I don't think that that is all that surprising, because you would think that a cemetery would be maybe a haunted place. But I do just think that there is definitely some kind of creepy aura surrounding this playground. Many of the locals who live in that area heard stories about this place, and some of them don't even ever want to visit there because there's just so many creepy stories surrounding Doris Park. But other people who are horror junkies visit there on a regular basis, and a lot of people again do have paranormal stories about this specific park. The next urban legend that I've chosen to talk about in today's video is known as Hell Gates Bridge, and this bridge is located in Oxford, Alabama. It was said while I was searching this online that unless you knew specifically where to go and what exactly you were looking for, it would be very unlikely that you would ever stumble across this specific bridge. This bridge used to be used for car traffic, but since that time the bridge is made out of wood and it's become pretty worn, so it is no longer safe for vehicles to drive over top of it. And I also don't think that this bridge is sturdy enough for even people to walk on. So since that time, there is now cement cylinders put all along the bridge so that nobody can walk across it or attempt to drive over it or anything like that. The bridge is just completely closed. Now let's talk about how this bridge gained its name. So this all took place in the 1950s when the bridge was fully functioning, connecting one side of the road to the other side of the road over top of water. This bridge again was a fully functioning bridge at this time, and there was a young couple driving late at night one night, and they decided that they were going to take the route that you needed to cross the bridge. But for whatever reason, when they drove across the bridge, their car ended up in the water, and unfortunately neither the male or the female got out of the vehicle, and both ended up passing away. Since this tragic accident had taken place, many ghost stories surrounding this specific bridge has surfaced. One of the more popular stories that surrounds this bridge is that if you park your vehicle with the lights facing towards the bridge, either the male or female will enter your vehicle into the back seat and leave wet marks on your seat. But what seems to really stand out about this bridge and what gained this bridge its name is that people claim, several people, this isn't just one person making this claim, that if you go to visit this bridge and you're kind of walking away or driving away from it and you look over your shoulder, when you look back, the bridge then resembles the fiery gates of hell, and several people have first-hand witnessed this whole appearance with their own eyes. Again, this bridge today is completely closed off due to safety concerns, but you can visit the general area and see the bridge for yourself. You just cannot cross over it or stand on it. Because of this is still a pretty bumpin' spot for, paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, curious tourists, and teenagers who are looking for a good scare. The next urban legend comes out of Abbeville, Alabama, and this urban legend is known as the Huggin Molly. This urban legend is over 100 years old and all starts way back in the day when a woman would stalk the streets of Abbeville, Alabama very late in the night wearing a super dark cloak with a large hat on that completely covered her face, concealing her identity. This woman was said to stalk the streets of the night only in the very late hours of the evening on nights that were extremely cold. She would do this because on nights that it was very cold, the street lights would be blown out because they were oil lights at that time, and so the streets would be in complete darkness. While she was doing this, if she seen somebody else walking along the street at the same time as her, she would run up and hug them to death. I do have to say that when I first came across this urban legend and I was reading that, I was thinking that it did sound a little bit humorous. However, after I thought about it a little bit, I think that being squeezed to death would be an absolutely horrible way to go out. You know that feeling that you get when somebody's just hugging you so tightly and you don't want to be hugged, and it's just a really awful feeling. So for somebody to be squeezing you so tightly that you pass away must have just been absolutely awful. Over time, this urban legend ended up evolving, and the first original urban legend of the woman stalking the streets at night and hugging whoever she had seen changed to what is now known as Huggin Molly. And Molly is not the same woman as the woman who was originally in the story. Molly was allegedly a woman who lived in the area way back when, and she lost her child, so she would go out at night walking around because she was sad and she was just completely stricken with grief. So if she saw a child out, she would be worried about them. And she wasn't hugging them in kind of like a scary way, but she would see these children out alone at night and she would go over and just squeeze them so tightly and even scream in their ear. All of these children that had these encounters with this woman were never harmed, they were never hurt, they were always left completely fine. They were probably shaken up quite a bit, but she never did harm these children. This urban legend is still super popular in that area, so much so that there is actually a cafe named after this urban legend called the Huggin Molly. And the last urban legend that I'm going to be visiting in today's video is what is known as Crybaby Hollow Bridge. Now there are several urban legends and bridges in America that are known as Crybaby Bridge, but this specific bridge is located in Saraland, Satsuma area in Alabama. This specific bridge is located on the same property as the Cali Oakland plantation. Now the reason that I mention this is because it is located on the plantation, it does leave the entire bridge feeling very creepy even during the day because the plantation is completely abandoned. People also say that the plantation itself is fairly haunted. Many people claim to see a woman stalking the property at night, and she can be seen sometimes within the abandoned houses on the plantation, lighting candles and doing things like that. when in fact actually nobody is there. Now that is not the main focus of this specific urban legend, but I did think that that was pretty interesting because it does add to the creep factor of the bridge. Now I feel like this is fairly obvious, but the bridge gained its name because people claim that if you go onto the bridge between the hours of 12 a.m. to 3:30 a.m., you can hear a baby crying. The legend goes that way back in the day, the plantation master caught his wife having an affair with a slave. He was so enraged when he came across his wife and this slave that he cut off the slave's hands and tied him to a tree and let him bleed to death. Several months after the owner of the plantation caught his wife having an affair, his wife found out that she was pregnant with the slave's child. She did end up giving birth to this child, and then her and her husband took the baby down to the bridge and they threw it off into the water where they left it to drown. It is said that if you cross the bridge, again, you can hear the baby crying, but people also claim to have seen the ghost of the handless slave walking around that area crying out, searching for his baby. I know this was a little bit of a shorter video, but I thought that the urban legend kind of thing was pretty interesting and that maybe you guys would enjoy it because, again, Halloween is coming up and this kind of stuff is super interesting for me, at least, to get into around that time. But that really brings us to the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Also, please let me know in the comments if I should put my Halloween background stuff up already. I know it is quite early, but I'm getting pretty excited. So definitely, if you watched this part of the video, let me know that in the comments down below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.